everyone, welcome back, and I hope you're having a nice week. I recently viewed my admissions file, and if you don't know what that is, it basically gives information as to what admissions officers were thinking when they chose to accept a student, as well as providing just a few comments on their application, be those good or bad. And so I'd like to share that with you all because personally this was a really eye-opening experience for me into the college admissions process. I definitely still don't know everything that goes on in college admissions, but it gave me some insight into what admissions officers might be looking for, what they're interested in, and what sort of criteria they're using to evaluate students. Anyways, without further ado, let's just get into the video. So the process of actually getting this admissions file was, for some reason, kind of confusing. It didn't fully make sense. I sent an email to the registrar's office probably around September, just asking if I could look at my file, saying I wanted to see it, and they replied back. They said yes. But what was strange was originally they just sent me my exact application, no comments, nothing, just like a printed out version of my Common App, and gave that to me to read, which was not super helpful. I had written it. I kind of knew that. But then what was strange was mid-January, I got an email from the registrar's office saying that actually they did have my file with comments from admissions officers and that I was allowed to view it before the records were destroyed on March 10th, I think. So I actually finally got to see my admissions file instead of just the application. I'm not sure why there was the mix-up at first, but I think the entire process of just getting to see your admissions file is a bit tricky, which is why not everyone does it. Anyways, once I finally got that info, I scheduled a 30-minute appointment where I was allowed to go into the admissions building. I wasn't allowed to take photos of the documents, but I was given a pen and a piece of paper, and I was allowed to write down any notes that I wanted. So because of that, here they are. These are the notes I was able to write during that appointment, and basically these are all just from the admissions file, trying to figure out what exactly admissions officers were meaning when they were saying certain things, and just judging sort of the general way in which admissions applications are read. I was given two pieces of paper. One was from my first application reader and one was from my second. And these had a ranking of a 1 through 6 scale on qualities such as academics, extracurriculars, etc. And then they also had a paragraph written by each evaluator. So I got to have a bit more info on what they thought about me and my application holistically. First thing that I read was my prep form by my first reader, which was essentially the paragraph that this first reader wrote just to speak about me and my qualities and my application. They ended up choosing to advocate for me in the application process, choosing to say that I should be accepted, and they specifically mentioned a lot that I was a good fit for the program in liberal medical education. So that reader was really pushing for me to then also be considered for that program as well. One thing that they mentioned quite a bit that they said overall was that I had strong self-presentation in my application, and they said that I was quote-unquote a great writer. And then they also mentioned that my academics were good. They said I had strong testing, and that was part of why they recommended the program in liberal medical education. Non-academically, the extracurriculars that I had that most stood out to them were founding a HOSA chapter and being the state vice president, saying that that showed commitment and dedication to that club. They also mentioned my internship with the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Center, working at my family's restaurant every summer. They put oboe in all caps, so I think that was a big deal to them that I played an instrument and that I played a slightly rarer instrument. And they also mentioned that I volunteered at the hospital. So those were the main extracurriculars that they seemed especially interested in, partially because they showed community, partially because they showed dedication, because I had done those the most often, And for ones like the internship I had, I think part of that was the prestige factor. Overall, what they mentioned that I took note of that were just phrases that I took out of that paragraph were great academics, Common App shows empathy, non-judgmentality, maturity, and self-awareness. Funnily enough, I really thought that my recommendation letters were kind of the main thing that got me in. I knew I had fantastic recommenders and that they advocated for me very well. So I was expecting to actually see more of that on my application read-through. But funnily enough, that wasn't mentioned at all. I didn't see any mention of recommendation letters or recommenders or what they had said about me. So I think the main things that this reader was looking through were writing style and essay writing, academics, and extracurriculars. Next up was my second reader, and they also actually ranked me 1 through 6 on a couple different categories. So I didn't receive any 6s. I guess they didn't like me that much, but I still got in, so that's fine. I don't think you have to be perfect in every category. I had a 5 in academics, a 4 in extracurriculars, and a 4 in a category called likelihood, which I would assume means likelihood of being accepted or getting in. Now, this reader mentioned that they were excited to have me at the school with or without PLEME. So while my first reader really recommended PLEME strongly and seemed to gun for that, this one also mentioned that I would be good in the undergrad even alone. And also the fact that both recommenders mentioned PLEME makes me think that possibly, and I can't confirm this, so I don't know for sure, but possibly the undergraduate admissions readers are the ones who are choosing which applications are then sent to the Program in Liberal Medical Application Acceptance Committee. So these application readers are sort of filtering out students and figuring out which ones will be sent on to that next round in the PLEME application process, I think. A couple things stood out to this reader that were sort of similar. They also mentioned that I had a strong self-presentation and that I had good, enthusiastic writing, quote unquote. They also mentioned that my best accomplishment, in their opinion, was HOSA, being both the founder and state vice president, saying that, quote, she showed that she's willing to step beyond her comfort zone and is also deeply devoted to joining the medical profession. They also mentioned that another one of my accomplishments was a demanding transcript and doing well on that. So I do think academics, testing, all of that is really important. I think that this process genuinely is just as holistic as it's said to be, because when I looked through my application, there wasn't just one thing that got me in. It was sort of a combination of extracurriculars, essays. Every single section of the application is important in some way. Finally, I took one quote out of that paragraph that I just thought was interesting. It says, quote, her third supplemental shows a nice awareness of learning to have fun with her peers outside the classroom, and it looks like she's been visible on campus through music, science team, and giving tours. I wish her supplementals spoke to some non-STEM exploration and engagement, but I do believe she will at least have impact through some of Brown's pre-med cohorts, including CHAP, Brown HOSA, and others mentioned here. Now, I found that interesting mainly because it shows what they're looking for in essays, which is they're wanting to see how you will fit in on campus. My essay for my third supplemental, which is what was mentioned, was actually a rather goofy one, just talking about my friends and the sort of community things we do. And so they saw in that essay that I would not only be active academically, but I would be active socially. I think it's nice to have a blend in your essays of academic essays, but also hitting these admissions officers with a couple completely non-academic stories just about how you like to engage with others. It's okay to sort of let down your very serious side and show that you also are a person who interacts with other people in settings outside of the classroom. That's what they want to see. And clearly I didn't do a perfect job of that, because they did mention that I never really talked about extracurriculars outside of STEM. And so I think it's important to really make sure that each essay is hitting a slightly different box. I think I had 2 essays talking about STEM for my Brown application, when in reality I probably could have substituted one of those with a different subject, a different interest, something new about me, and that would have strengthened my application. Finally, this recommender also recommended me for PLEMI, so that's how I was able to move on in the process. I don't actually have any info on what my PLEMI advising committee, what the PLEMI application committee did to decide that I was supposed to be part of that program. They didn't give me that information, it wasn't offered, there's no real place to find it. But it appears that since both of these recommenders had to recommend me for PLEMI, I actually probably was put into a smaller batch of students who were accepted to Brown and who seemed like they might fit the program and had applied. And that was how I moved on into the program in liberal medical education application panel. Now, I definitely am no expert in college admissions, college applications. I was probably in a lot of your guys' shoes very, very recently. But what it definitely appears to be is there are 3 main categories for applications that need to be focused on the most. There's essays, and having unique, compelling essays, that is really important. I'll be sharing some essay tips if you're interested in watching some essay videos. I might create some if there's interest shown. There's extracurriculars, making sure that you're part of your community, that you're really dedicating your interest to the same things that you're talking about in your essays. And then, of course, the part that is not the simplest because it's very difficult, but the part that sort of is the foundation for all of this is academics and test scores, although now many schools are test optional, so I don't think those matter quite as much, but definitely transcripts and showing that you're taking difficult classes, hopefully within your subject area. If you would like any advice on the college application process, I am more than happy to give it. And I actually have an email you can send any questions to me at, and that's college.with.ava@gmail.com. I offer Zoom sessions for a rate of $20 an hour, and then I also offer essay editing services where you could just email me your essay and I will email you back comments within 2 days, and I'll put my rates down below for those. The college application process is definitely daunting, definitely scary. I am happy to help with figuring out essay writing, talking about transcripts, and talking about anything you might want to do with your extracurriculars. I'm here to be your sort of guide and mentor. I've been in your shoes, and I was able to survive this absolutely intimidating process, so I'd love to help you do the same. Anyways, that's kind of all I have for this video today. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you soon. Leave any suggestions down in the comments below for videos you might want to see me do in the future. I might be uploading a week in my life video soon if you're interested, or I might also stick more to the college application route and talk a bit more about the essays that got me in, or anything else you're interested in about the application process. Just let me know.